Hello and welcome to Quilt Addicts Anonymous. I'm Stephanie Sebane. Today we have a really special video for you guys. We get this request often from you guys and we're finally able to do it for you. We are offering paper patterns for some of our PDF only patterns. So this is a really exciting moment. I actually started building my business into a national brand through paper patterns by offering them through distributors. But it was logistically difficult to be profitable doing it. And we've solved those issues because we purchased a professional copier and printer. So that is the main difference between when I started and today, which makes this feasible for us. And so that's really exciting for us to be able to bring that to you, because we know that a lot of you guys really sometimes just prefer to have it already ready to go. But also, if you're a quilt shop owner or you know one, they're going to be able to order those. These are available through Checkers. You can order through them. And if you have an account with them, we prefer that you do that. It's a lot easier for us to fill one big order than it is a bunch of smaller ones. And so we prefer that. If you do not have an account with Checker, please send an email to help@quiltaddictsanonymous.com with your EIN number and your sales tax certificate for your state. You need to have those two things attached in the email so that way we know you are a business and a quilt shop owner, and then we will send you the patterns at a discount. So that'll be really cool. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to go through them now, and so it'll be exciting. We can kind of do like a quilt show and tell as we go through it. I can tell you a little bit about what inspired each pattern, and just know that you can get all of these as a PDF and start it immediately, or you can get a paper pattern now on our website. They're in alphabetical order. We're going to start with Afternoon Picnic. So this pattern was originally developed as part of our Stash with Stephanie Club. I was really inspired by the line that we were working with that month, which was More Pie from Dana Willard, and it had 3 distinct color groupings. And so what I did was I made a bunch of half square triangles and then grouped them into a singular block. So it looked like it was a square set on point, but that's just kind of a trick of the eye. It's just straight up piecing, and then one block every other row is like a half block. So it kind of creates this offset look and is a really good way to show off color. So if you are a scrap saver or you have a lot of fat quarters and you want to group it into like 3 of your favorite colors, this is a really good one to work with. Also, it's a good one if you are interested in really mastering half square triangles, because there are a lot of them in this. It's available in a crib, lap, queen, and king. All of these patterns, by the way, come with a piecing video tutorial, so you're able to get some hand holding as you work your way through it. Many of them also have a quilting video tutorial as well. And if you are a shop getting these, we have removed the information about our Stashin with Stephanie Club, about how to join, because we know you're not going to want to promote that to us, but it does have the information on where they can go to get a little bit of hand holding on helping them learn more and how to make this quilt a success so that they'll come back to you and purchase more fabric. Next up is All the Pretties. So for this quilt, we had a collection that had a lot of large scale prints that I really didn't want to cut up small because there are really a lot of focal points, but I also didn't want to have to fussy cut anything. So I came up with this All the Pretties. It is similar to Garden Plot if you made that one from us, but it's vertically, and we have different widths of strips that are put together. So it is completely strip pieced, and it is a great way to show off those really big prints that you just don't want to cut up, hence the name All the Pretties. So this one is a fairly beginner level one. It's one that you can get together pretty quickly. Blooming Star is next. This was more of an intermediate quilt pattern. It has strip piecing, and it also does a really great job of showing off large scale fabrics. So it's great for those pretty ones that you don't really want to cut up too small. We're not fussy cutting anything in this one. The fabric ends up wherever it ends up when you cut it, but we are working with 60-degree diamonds. So that is a little bit different. You do need a Clearview triangle ruler with this. We use those a lot with all of our 60-degree triangle and diamond patterns. So if I hate like buying a ruler that you're only going to use one time, like that is such a waste to me. But this one we use probably every third month when we're coming out with a new pattern. So if you like our patterns and you want to give these types of triangles and diamonds a try, you will be able to use this ruler many times. This one was really fun. There's no Y seams in this at all. It is just all put together on a diagonal row and then assembled into 6 wedges and then assembled into 2 halves. And so it goes super fast for the construction, and it really allows you to show off all those fun prints. Blooming Star is available in lap size only. Burst Revisited is another fat quarter friendly quilt from our Stashin with Stephanie. Actually, so far all of these have been from Stashin with Stephanie. I think there's only 1, maybe 2 that are not. This one is modeled after one of our most popular block of the months, Burst. That one was not fat quarter friendly, so I redid the instructions and took one of the blocks instead of having a bunch of different designs like we did for the block of the month. We took one and we worked it for the fabric collection that we were featuring that month. It actually would work with a lot of different fabric collections, because when you have a traditionally screen printed fabric collection, a lot of times you will have where they produce the same print in 3 different colorways. So you end up with like 3 different lights and 3 different mediums and 3 different light mediums. And so this one was good because it took all those light and light medium prints and put them in that corner 9 patch. And then we have those angled rectangles coming out of the sides so that it kind of looks like a spark. And those are all the darker prints. So it really allows you to separate those lighter prints from the background, which I feel like is one of the hardest things to do when you're working on a quilt, is when you have a collection you love and it's just a lot of lights. This is a good pattern for that because you're able to utilize all those prints, including those light ones, and not lose your block because you put a light print in a spot that's really right next to your background. And it was a really fun quilt to do. People really love this one. Burst Revisited is available in a small lap, which is a little bit bigger than a crib, a large lap, which is what we made the sample in, and a queen. Flyaway is another Stashin with Stephanie pattern. This one was really fun to do. I felt like it looked a little bit like a feather going up and down, which is why I called it Flyaway. It has strip piecing, and then we're cutting on the diagonal with that. And so this is not like a super hard quilt, so it's not like a true beginner, but it's also, I wouldn't call it intermediate. It's like a confident beginner could definitely do this quilt, especially if they're watching the video tutorial that we have to go with it. And I liked coming up with what looked like the spine. So instead of having a background, we also kind of had like a sashing strip that went in between every other of the vertical rows, because it really just kind of created that look to make it look like some feathers floating around. So I really like this one. Flyaway is available in a crib, lap, twin, and king. Grid work is definitely a beginner-friendly pattern. This one is fat quarter friendly, and it was inspired by the bathroom tile in my original 1950s bathroom. We actually have 2 quilts in this pile that have been inspired by my bathroom. But this was inspired by the floor tile that was original to our house. And I modified the pattern a little bit so that way we just had complete sections to go to and no partial seams. But it's really fun because it allows you to really show off your prints, because we have some really big squares, we have some really big rectangles, as well as some medium-sized squares. Nothing is really too small in this, but it is put together in kind of an alternate grid format. So that way we have like 6 sections that you're sewing together, and then you're joining into 3 large rows to sew together. So this one is a really fun one, great for showing off really big prints that you really love and you want to showcase large. And also it's just strip piecing, so definitely beginner friendly. Grid work is available in throat size only. Interlocking Triangles is one of my favorite quilts that I designed last year. This one is definitely intermediate. It uses 60-degree triangles and diamonds in it, and it is a lot of fun to put together. This one you kind of have to plan your fabric placement ahead of time, but we've got a little diagram inside to help you with that. You need to number your fabrics in order to make this work, and it's just so fun. It was inspired by a children's shape book that I read to my daughter that is Frank Lloyd Wright themed, and I just saw this design of his and I was like, that needs to be a quilt, so we made it a quilt. And I love how the fabrics just like meld into one another and allow you to really show everything off. Interlocking Triangles is available in lap size only, but they do have instructions on how to make it larger into a king. Ladies chain is also fat quarter friendly, and it is also really good for showing off fabrics because we have 3 different sizes of squares in here, and each fabric, it appears in each of the different sizes. So you're able to see it big as well as on a small scale, and everything in it is strip pieced, and so it goes together really fast, and it is very beginner friendly. And this one was a really fun one to put together. It was just a riot of color, so I had a lot of fun with that. We've also done it in a more tranquil shell rummel version, and that was really pretty too. So it doesn't have to be really bright and bold, but if you are a scrap saver, a fat quarter saver, this is a good one for you because you're going to be able to really feature a lot of fabrics. Ladies chain is available in crib, lap, twin, and king. Lattice was one of the quilts that I made during the pandemic, and it was a lot of fun because it was another one of those where I was able to showcase a lot of prints in a small way. And you can absolutely rearrange these blocks any which way. We kind of have ours going in a diagonal pattern across, but the instructions, normally I tell you to press everything open, but this one, if you press the seams to the side, you can actually get almost this entire quilt together without using a single pin, just by butting those seams next to each other. So it's quite beginner friendly because it is really easy to assemble and get good joints. Lattice is available in a crib, throw, full, and king size. Brainstorm was a really fun quilt to put together. I'm always really inspired whenever we have fabrics from Wishwell by Robert Kaufman. It is just a really fun digital print that you don't see every day. So I love to do something fun and unexpected, and that is definitely the case with this one. It looks a lot more complicated than it is, but we essentially are just strip piecing a bunch of rows and then kind of laying them out on a diagonal. So it does take more time because you have different widths of rows that you're working on, and I kind of assembled it as I went. I didn't like lay everything out ahead of time. I just kind of kept going and adding rows until I was done. But I just love the way that this one turned out. Brainstorm is only available in lap size. Raspberry Sherbet is actually the first pattern that I wrote, but we revamped it a couple of years ago to come out with a triangle masterclass. So there's a completely free course that you can take to go along with this. And when I originally designed it, it was to teach a triangle masterclass. So you would learn how to do half square triangles, quarter square triangles, double pinwheels, and flying geese and miter corners, and put everything together so you don't lose any points, and be able to use all of those elements in one quilt. And so I love that when you like have an actual project and something to show off for the work that you did, and you can really master it by the time you are done with a quilt. So this one was a really fun one to put together and reimagine for you guys, and you guys can check out that free series over at Quilt Addicts Anonymous. And so that is really fun. We do have some quilt kits available for this, and we're always coming out with new versions, so make sure you check that out over at shop.quiltaddictsanonymous.com. Our quilt kits are usually in lap size, but the instructions come with sizing for crib, lap, twin, and queen. Next up, we have Scene Stars. This is one of my favorite block combinations, and I've used it a couple of times, where we have a star in the center and then a log cabin on the outside. For this particular one, it was another one of those instances where we had a lot of really light prints that wouldn't really stand out well against a light background. So we actually had a medium scale background for this one. You wouldn't have to, you could use light, but I kept all the light prints for the center of my stars. That way they were really separated from the background, because I used the darkest prints for the stars of the center of that block, so that way we can really separate everything, have a really defined block. Then all those medium tones were used as half of the log cabin, and then we used background for the other half, and we set it on a diagonal setting, and it was just a really fun one to do. Scene Stars is available in crib, lap, twin, and king. Star Sign was one of those quilts that was instantly popular, and whenever I see a line that I think would make a great star sign, it sells out almost immediately for kits. It is gorgeous, it's so fun, and essentially our neutral is our star, and there are 3 different size stars, so it emulates the night sky because some stars are bigger than others. And then we have log cabin blocks going around it. And this is kind of important to know. So the pattern instructions in the back tell you how to do it if you're cutting economically. If you are going to emulate the look of ours, where you have the darkest fabric surrounding the star, going progressively lighter as you get to the outsides of the log cabin, then what you want to do is multiply whatever we've suggested by fat quarters by about 25%. And that's going to give you enough. Now, you may still want to have a few extras, so this is a good one to use up a lot of scraps. So make sure you are saving a lot of black and gray. We've done it in blue and silver. That looks fabulous too. So that was like my favorite part before I started doing this like for a living, was the collecting phase. Like I knew I wanted to do something with teals, so I would collect teals as long as I could, and then I would see what they wanted me to turn them into. And so this is a good one where like, okay, I know I want to do this. So when I see a good like black and gray starry print, I'm going to save that until I have enough to do this selection. Star sign is available in lap, tween, queen, and king sizes. Subway is another fat quarter friendly pattern. This one was really fun. We got a really graphic line from Ebon for our Stashin with Stephanie Club, and I just wanted it to show off and shine in different bits. And so this entire one is, you strip piece the background to your larger strip, and then we're able to get all those units put together fairly easily and quickly. And then I just laid everything out row by row. And with mine, I made the twin size. I had 15 fabrics. And so in each 2 rows, I was able to use all 15 fabrics. So that way I didn't have to worry about laying the entire quilt out at a time. I know that can be really challenging for some people because you might have to pick up, you might not be able to get the entire quilt together in one sewing session. So you can just do, 2 rows at a time with this one, pack it up, put it away, and just make sure you're using the fabrics every single time in that. And that works for the lap and the twin size. You can make that work. But this one was really fun. I think it looked great with the modern prints, but I think it also would look really good if you get it out of neutrals and you do like some cape in there. So this is a really fun one. Again, if you love fat quarters, you're gonna love this one. Subway is available in crib, lap, twin, and king sizes. All right, I'm pretty sure this is the only quilt in the stack that is not fat quarter friendly, and that is our T-shirt quilt pattern. It's a very simple pattern as far as T-shirt quilts go. It's just some sashing and cornerstones. But if you're following along with our T-shirt quilting class, that's free to watch and learn all that you need to do. And this is a really beginner-friendly project. This is a lot of people's very first quilting project, is a T-shirt quilt, because essentially once you get the T-shirts cut and fused to your interfacing, your block is done. You're just going to add some sashing, some cornerstones, call it done. And our series goes through everything you need to know on cutting your shirts, choosing your shirts, laying your shirts out, sewing things together, and quilting it at the end. So it really shows you everything you need to know, so that way you can get it done for a graduation or a retirement gift or whatever it is you have in mind. The T-shirt quilt pattern comes in lap, twin, queen, and king sizes. If you want a king, you have 49 shirts to put in there, and that will be a heavy quilt, but it will definitely have a lot of memories in it. Tropical Grove was one where I was trying to kind of recreate the look of a pineapple block without having all of the paper piecing that goes along with it. So we kind of mimic the look of it with half square triangles and no paper piecing. So again, this is a good one. If you're trying to master half square triangles, you can do it with this block. This is another one where if you want to kind of follow the fade, you're going to need a little bit more fabric than it says in the pattern. So just have a little bit more on hand. And then you have some extra that you can use in other projects in a pretty normal size. Like a lot of my patterns use the same sizes over and over again, because there are some sizes that just work really well to cut from fat quarters. So you might be able to save those and use them again in another project later. For this one, I made the lap version using 19 fat quarters that were in the twin packet. So that kind of gives you an idea. I had 6 extra fat quarters and I had a lot of extra fabric at the end. And so it just kind of depends what kind of quilter are you. Are you going to go for the look of the fade and have some extra fabric? Or do you want to be as economical as possible and you don't really care where everything shows up? So that's kind of a fun one. Watch the video if you want to learn more about it. But Tropical Grove is available in lap, twin, full, and queen sizes. Ultraviolet was one of the most popular patterns that we put out. We used Allison Glass originally for it, and you guys just loved the radiating star. This is all strip pieced, and so there's no Y seams in it at all, and the blocks go together fairly quickly with that strip piecing. It is, I would say, an intermediate level quilt because you are going to be working with some 60-degree diamonds, and you have to make sure you're cutting to the right measurements when you are cutting down those strip piece units. Otherwise, things aren't going to fit together correctly. But we do have the video tutorial that walks you through it step by step. And this is just a really fun one to go with one of those really bright rainbow. This one was actually kind of like black and white and rainbow all together, but I just love the way it turned out. I think any Allison Glass line would look good in it, but we also have had some other lines that have come through since then that also look really good in this quilt. Ultraviolet is only available in lap size. Vintage Revisited is a fat quarter friendly quilt that is, again, all strip pieced. It was originally inspired by the hexagons that were really popular for English paper piecing in the 1930s. Most people, when they think of this, they think of the grandmother's flower garden hexagon that's put together, but there also was a really popular pattern where you would lay them out in a diamond format and then they would kind of just alternate into one another. And that, I love the look of that. I think it's really cool, but it also is really time consuming because you're hand piecing all of that and stitching that by hand, and you have to have a lot of templates. So I wanted to recreate the look of that without as much effort. And so that's why I came up with the setting of having the squares and rectangles kind of come out like that. So that way we could sort of recreate the look of that diamond, but have it be a lot easier. So this one is definitely a beginner-friendly project. Vintage Revisited too also does a good job of making sure if you have lighter fabrics within the collection that you don't want to have right next to the background, you could have those be kind of in the center of your diamond so that way they don't ever touch the background, and that way you can use some of those more challenging to use collections. Vintage Revisited is available in crib, lap, twin, and king sizes. Whirligig was a pattern that was also really fun for me to put together. Normally when I do flying geese, I do them the 4 at a time method that we teach you with the Triangle Masterclass. But for this one, we did the stitch and flip method because it mattered what side of the block had the fat quarter wing versus the background wing. That's what creates sort of the Whirligig block in the center. And then on the outside of the block, there is another little print triangle. And this is another one where it could have been just a plain Jane quilt with a normal, setting side by side. But what I did is I offset it. So every other row is half a block, starts off that row, and that creates a really cool secondary pattern and just looks like a bunch of little whirligigs swirling all around your quilt. It's a really fun one to do with a bright collection because it just looks fun and kind of reminds me of summer. Whirligig is available in crib, lap, twin, and queen sizes. Last but certainly not least is Zigzag. This is another one where I wanted to make sure that the lighter prints had a place to go that wasn't right next to the background. So we're using a combination of half square triangles and squares so that way our lightest fabrics are in the center of that diagonal that is formed in the block. And then we have our medium fabrics as squares on either side, followed by our darkest fabrics as our half square triangles that meet up with our background. And then when those get put together in that zigzag formation, it creates a clearly defined block in which you're able to use both the lightest prints and the darkest prints in your collections. Zigzag is available in crib, lap, twin, and queen. A lot of these patterns, almost all of them, were inspired by the fabric that we received for our Stashin with Stephanie Club. So I really take a look at each one of those fabric lines and I think, how can this live its best life? And with some of them, it's really easy because there isn't a neutral among them, and it's really easy to make all of those stand out against the background. But there are a lot of collections that are very traditionally screen printed when the design happens. And a lot of designers of fabric are not also quilters. So they don't realize that if you give me 5 neutrals out of 15, that's not going to do a lot for me because one of those needs to be a background and then the others are a little bit too busy to be used as a background. So you need to have sometimes a way to separate those from your background, and that's why we have quilts like Zigzag where there are specific spots to have your light, medium, and dark fabrics, because then you can very easily separate them out. And from that background, have your block be a successful block because you can tell where it's at. And it uses all the elements of the collection that you fell in love with. You saw that back ornamental and thought it was fabulous and had to get it, but weren't sure what to do. This is a really good way to make that happen. Thank you so much for going through all these patterns with me. It is 20 patterns that are now all available for print, so you can get them directly from us. If you're a consumer, if you are a quilt shop, we would prefer that you order through Checker, but if you don't have an account with Checker, again, please email help@quiltaddictsanonymous.com with your EIN number and a copy of your sales tax certificate, and we'll get you a special coupon code so you can order those at wholesale pricing from us. All right, until next time, happy quilting.